Nice to see you.
We're on.
I would guess that's Charlotte.
Everyone, it's great to see so many familiar faces. Really big welcome to you all. First of the SSE Fellowship Series. I've got a bit of a script, so I'm going to try and follow it, partly because we've got a short amount of time to get a lot in. First of all, also a big welcome to those who are streaming. Is that right term? Did we say that?
There's 10 of them at the most, 10.
Somewhere, hopefully, globally, all around the world, listening in to all of us here, no pressure. So my name's Amy, and I am, like a lot of you here, a fellow of SSE. I participated in an SSE programme back in 2005, a long time ago. I think I'm one of the oldest, bar Ali, of course, he's very
Bar Charlotte.
Oh, Charlotte. Well, we'll come to Charlotte in a minute. So yeah, I set up a social enterprise that I ran for 10 years, but now I work for SSE. I am here, I look after the quality of our programmes, so I know quite a few of you from some of the programmes, and it's great to see you all. Before we start, I just want to find out a little bit more about who else is in the room. So as you know, we've got schools in India and Canada. Just to check, are there any Indian or Canadian fellows in the room? Okay, no, that's not. But I do know that there are some other fellows. If you just want to raise your hand that have come from outside of London. Right? I know there's someone that's come as far as Devon for the evening. Yes, anyone come from any further than Devon? Great, well we've got West Midlands. Oh, big welcome.
It's anyone from South London?
Most definitely.
Good. And what about scale-up students? Are there any scale-up fellows? Great, welcome. Trade-up fellows? Good. And then the rest of you start-up fellows. Am I right? Is there others? Good. Others as well. Other programs too. Oh, big work. Oh, others that aren't fellows at all. I know. I'll come to you. Don't worry. But yeah. So first of all, welcome to all of our fellows. And there are, of course, other people in the room who are a really big welcome to all of you. It's an honour to have you here. So thanks for coming along. So we're hugely excited that this is the first gathering of the SSE Fellows movement that we want to build. We find ourselves at the moment in challenging times, growing inequality, a divided society, and the spectre of Brexit ahead. We need people like you, SSE Fellows, who can drive social change and help to address some of the challenges that we face. There's a huge amount of potential within our fellowship, and now's the time to realise it. Social entrepreneurs need a support network around them. And we hope that this movement goes some way to providing this support. We know from consulting with fellows like yourselves and others that you're keen for more specialist support and investment, so we're really thrilled that later this evening we'll be introducing something called Social Partners, a new initiative exclusively for SSE fellows. We're also announcing tonight and over the coming months some other exciting opportunities for fellows to engage with each other and to access the support they need, financial and otherwise, to grow their organisations and to individually and collectively achieve the impact we know is so desperately needed. Just very quickly to let you know what's happening tonight. In a minute I'm going to introduce Matthew. After that we've got Charlotte Young and Barry Marshall who are going to talk a bit about social partners. We then have, it wouldn't be an SSE event if we didn't have a witness. For those of you that don't know what that means, I'm not going to tell you, you'll just experience it in a minute. But we've got one of our fellows, Robin Chu, who's going to give a short witness session. And then we've got a structured networking activity, which will be chaos probably. And then following that, we're going to have a completely unstructured networking activity, which will also be chaos. So, I'm delighted to introduce Matthew Taylor, who's the Chief Executive of our hosts here at RSA. The RSA have been in the business of building a movement for more than 250 years, and so Matthew has a wealth of knowledge that he's going to share with us. Is that okay?
Yeah. Now?
Yes, is that all right?
So I'm going to do it in 7 minutes. I'm setting the last. Thanks, Amy. So you talked about the context that we're in, and I think if there was one quote about the importance, why social enterprise is important at a time like this, it would be a quote that I think is, I took it from Roberto Unger, I think, but he said, it's not hope that leads to action, it's action that leads to hope. And that's why social enterprise is an incredibly important part of how this can respond to the three Ps of polarisation, populism and pessimism, which are all around us at the moment. What I want to say to you, which has got absolutely nothing to do with what I'm actually going to say, but it might do at the end, you never know, I'm running out of time, is I hate books. Right? This is just something I need to share with you. I know it's a shocking thing to say, but I do. And there's a particular reason for that. I mean, it is the case that nearly every book that's published is rubbish and nobody buys it. That's simple. That's a simple fact. There are thousands of books published every week, and I think the average one's read by about 4 people. I thought, before I come here, I'd look on the internet for some of the best obscure book titles. I want to share with you Greek Rural Postmen and their cancellation numbers. Old Scottish Clockmakers, 1453 to 1830. That's not 253 to 630, that is 1450. But my favourite is Knitting with Dog Hair. Now, the problem about books, it isn't just that people write all this stuff that nobody reads and it's terrible. It's also, I'm saying because I'm writing a book, and what I didn't realise until I was writing the book, is the terrible psychological effect it has on the author. It makes you completely selfish and totally obsessive. I have no room for anything else in my life apart from this bloody book. It'll probably never even get published. Now, why am I sharing that with you? I'm sharing it with you because the book I'm writing is about, a lot of it is about a theory, and it's a theory derived from the work of a woman called Mary Douglas, and I'm going to go into it. But at its heart is a really, really simple idea, and the really simple idea is that ultimately there are kind of 3 broad sets of motivations, 3 broad kind of categories of motivation that drive us to do things. So the first is individualism. We're driven by the pursuit of our own self-development, self-growth, self-interest. Secondly, solidarity. We're driven by values and belonging and being part of a tribe and our sense of social responsibility. And then certainly hierarchy. We're driven by basically following the rules, being told what to do. Now, I find that framework interesting. Whether or not it's interesting enough to sustain 73,000 words, we'll find out. But I find it interesting and I use it. And I think it's kind of useful to think in relation to this kind of question of how you build a social movement. So, the RSA has been on a journey, and yes, we have at various times throughout our 270-year history been a social movement, but it's been particularly important for the last few years. And so thinking about those kind of 3 ideas, what do you have to do to build a social movement, which is what it is you're what you're in the process of doing. So the first thing is that kind of solidarity bit, that belonging bit, and values are really, really important. So the first thing I did, one of the first things I did when I got here was I recognised that we were recruiting fellows without any real value proposition. We were kind of basically telling them that they become a fellow because Prince Philip had identified them and they'd been chosen for a minor honour. And I won't get into the kind of veracity of that claim, but suffice to say, it didn't mean that the people who joined the organisation did so because they had a clear sense of the values of the organisation and the values that we expected of them. And we worked really, really hard to change that. So we no longer say to people, even though it was a major draw for people joining the RSA when I got here, and the fellowship department told me I was utterly wrong, it was completely catastrophic, but I said it is not a status symbol. Being a fellow is not a status symbol. It is a statement of commitment to values. It's not about your past achievements, it's about your future intentions. And now I like to think, and we get every person who joins the RSA to make a statement, that everyone who joins the RSA does so with clear-eyed understanding of the kind of values we have as a progressive organisation committed to the idea of enhancing human agency. So a strong value proposition. And the expectation that as a fellow, you're committed to those values and you're open to the possibility that you can work with the RSA to pursue those values. So that's the first thing. The social movement has got to be bound together by a strong sense of shared values. The second part is that hierarchy part. And that's about kind of structures, organisations, and we've had to make a whole set of changes in order to bring this social movement to life. When I started, there was literally one person whose job it was to engage fellows, and she randomly went around the country organising events that nobody came to. It was a miserable existence that she had. She was a wonderful woman. It was a terrible waste of her. We've now got a team, I think, of nearly a dozen people who are out in the country, around the world, engaging with people here around fellows involvement. We got rid of our regional committees. We used to have regional committees to the RSA, and the regional committees, the notion of a regional committee, I'll just give you a kind of hint here, it attracts men of my age who have a particular penchant for wearing chains of office. So, the regional committees were not great for a social movement because they were very keen on organising dinner dances, but not terribly keen on kind of things like social enterprise or trying to make a difference or anything like that. So we had to get rid of those. It nearly killed me. They nearly killed me. But that's gone, and instead we have networks. Networks based around the things that fellows share locally, or even more powerfully, the interests that they share. So we have 900 fellows in our sustainability network. We've got a manufacturing network. We've got a creative learning network. We've got a arts and culture network. So people share interests, and we support that activity. So our organisation has worked hard and continues to work really hard about understanding the best ways in which we can provide the right structure for that movement. Often people think social movements don't need structures. It's baloney. They do need structures, otherwise they just, like comics, they go high, they're very bright, but then they burn out very quickly. And then finally, that individualism bit. Now, I'd say you shouldn't talk about individualism in the context of social movements. Social movements are all about changing the world. But actually, we're all busy. We've all got things to do. There are all sorts of ways in which we can grow and express ourselves. And actually, you have to make a proposition about individual growth, I think, that people will get good things out of participating. If it's all about giving up your Thursdays, was it Oscar Wilde or George Bernard Shaw who said the problem with socialism is there aren't enough evenings in the week, So, look, there I've done it. I've got 1 minute left because I actually meant 8 minutes. So you have to give people that. So, really big incentive for fellows is to be able to connect with other fellows. So we provide opportunities to do that, whether it's writing on our blogs on our website or going to events like this, actually RSA Engage events where they can pitch ideas, or speaking on the steps at our wonderful new Raw Smell space downstairs that you must have a look at before you go. So we enable fellows to connect with each other. We have a little Catalyst fund which gives seed funds, very small seed funding sums, £2,000, £5,000 to fellows' initiatives and able to grow. But all those people who bid for Catalyst, even if they don't win the money, they get support to develop their idea. They get feedback, which many people have found incredibly valuable. So there's a whole set of ways in which we try to make it enjoyable, we try to give people connections, we try to give people support to develop their ideas. So there is a kind of sense of, well, I'm in the social movement change world, but also this is a movement that enriches me, enables me to develop my ideas, enables me to grow. So that's the third part. So if you're developing a social movement, strong values, realistic and effective structures, and a sense that we're all busy, we all got things to do. So why is this movement the thing that people want to spend their time on? So I guess the final thing I want to say is this. If you want to build a social movement as part of what you do, as part of being SSE, don't think you can do it at the margins of the organisation. It does change the way the organisation is. For us, fellowship engagement started as a journey 12 years ago about the fact that our fellows were disgruntled, apathetic and not involved. But now, we do not develop a single project at the RSA without saying how will fellows get involved in this project, how will fellows be participants in this project. Our fellows have just shaped the whole research programme that we're going to do in public services, because we went around the whole country and said to fellows who work in public services, what are the kind of research projects that we should be doing in this area? We're now growing projects which have the full support of the RSA, funding, press and everything, which first of all started with fellows themselves having an idea, and we've grown a structure around that. So if you want to do it, it'll change the whole way you work. It's not something you can stick in the kind of social movement department on the second floor. It will, in a wonderful way, but also a challenging way, change the way you want to be. So I think there's lots of opportunities for collaboration between the RSA and SSE. It's fantastic that you're here. Some of you are fellows, the rest of you should become fellows, and this will be your house. By the way, this room is called the Tavern Room because it was the room where the Tavern in Pickwick Papers was, so there's a bit of history for you, Dickens there. I hope this is the beginning of further conversations that we can have about that collaboration, because all of us who believe that it's action that leads to hope, we must work together. And social movements can and will change the world, certainly more effectively, at least, than books.
I'm gonna move this on, but just to take one of the points that Matthew made in the final bit, the individualism. So this is the area that we're going to move into now. We're going to talk a little bit more about the support that we can provide for you as individuals. I'm going to introduce the two people who are going to talk about our next initiative. Charlotte Young. So Charlotte, who many of you will either have met, have worked very closely with. But those of you that don't, I'll just give a brief introduction. So Charlotte is really responsible for pretty much founding SSE, and certainly, as far as I'm concerned, is responsible for our brilliant core learning programme that we run. And so I know she's an inspiration to a lot of us at SSE, but particularly us in the learning team. So thank you, Charlotte. And then Barry Marshall is another great friend of SSE. He's going to come and you two can sit down. We've got seats for you, so you can relax. Sit down. These two seats.
I wasn't
As long
on the seat.
I know, sorry. You're not allowed. Where would you?
Yeah,
Is it
go
this
that
one?
way.
Yeah. So that the stream is the good. I'm gonna hand over to you to talk about social partners. Then. Is that okay?
Fine, that's great, that's great.
Thanks.
So, I think I should say I met Barry when he already got himself engaged in volunteering for SSE 2.5 years ago, something like that. And I thought, bloody hell, he's been volunteering there and I never really met him. Let's go and have lunch. So we did. To some extent, what is happening now is partly to do with that lunch, as we first talked about it then. But it's an absolute pleasure to introduce Barry to you. He will tell you a little bit about himself. I don't think I need to say more about me.
Okay, so just very briefly, I've been retired since December 2014 after a lifetime working with PricewaterhouseCoopers, about 34 years. Range of roles there, ended up between 2008 and 2011 on the UK Executive Board as the head of the tax practice, and outside of PwC, spent 4 years on the advisory board at Warwick Business School, where I did an MBA way back in 1989. So I spent my life in the business world. Since retiring, I went back to education with a fair wind and a bit more effort on my part. I hope to graduate with a degree in history and philosophy at the Open University next year. Have to read some books to do that. And so we can have a debate on whether I've been wasting my time. 5 years, but never mind. I've enjoyed it, got something out of it. But beyond that, I spend my time volunteering. I'm a trustee for the Guildford Poyle charity, which is a local charity to where I live, which is trying to do good things in the local community. That's been around since 1628. So I guess that shows you just have to take a long-term view on some of these things. And then I'm a volunteer donor at the school.
Yeah, great. So one of the things that it's been a burning issue with me that as we had more and more people who came through our programs, and they all so much shared values already, because it, partly I suppose because people who choose to be social entrepreneurs have an evident set of values, but I suspect there was something in the selection process too that weeded out those that we didn't think quite were going to fit. So there is a commonality, and then we nurture and do all sorts of exciting and interesting things for a year, and then you go off, and for many it's just like falling off a cliff, I think. And I was always aware that not only were we letting you down, but also we were losing all of that resource, all of that excitement, all of these brilliant people who have so much to gain from one another, apart from us gaining from you as well. So this is I'm just so pleased to see this happening tonight. So I want to tell you a bit though about this idea that Barry and I have had, which is being launched tonight at the same time because it's linked closely to you fellows. So in the simplest terms, Barry, what are social partners? What is the idea?
Okay, so the idea is pretty simple. We're looking for people who come broadly from the world of business, got a set of business experiences which they've accumulated over a period of time. But they're at a point in time in their lives or their careers where they're interested in giving some of that time and some of their money to get to know and to work alongside the fellows of SSE as they try to develop and grow their social businesses.
Yeah.
That's,
And the reason we had about this was really we thought that we could help fellows to make even more impact in the world if there was that bit of extra help and support to build people in, because we know how incredibly pressurised you all are. So where do you think that social partners movement could go? What do you think we should be trying to achieve?
Well, I think there's a number of things that we can do as part of this movement. I'm really pleased to say that we've got no plans for regional committees. Potentially off to a good start as far as that's concerned. But so we start with things like this. Networking events is a chance to bring people together to share experiences, debate common problems, come up with new ideas. So that's a very nice kind of place to start. Sean and I know from conversations with fellows that there is a demand for one-to-one support as well. And we know fellows are still looking for coaches, they want mentors, they want specific business advice, they're looking for people to take on roles as trustees or non-executive directors. So there's a lot of demand for some one-to-one relationships to form, and really anything is possible and anything is up for grabs there. What we've got to try and do is to broker the demand and the supply. So that's the kind of a time piece, and networking things collectively, and hopefully some one-to-one relationships to work alongside the fellows. And then there's the money, and we are asking social partners, part of the proposition is to put some money on the table, and the thinking on that is at the beginning, we'll start by looking at a grant giving programme. We know there is still demand for grants, not all social enterprises are at the state where they can support commercial funding, so some form of grant is clearly earns demand for that. But also, again, talking to fellows and potential social partners, there is an appetite and an interest in looking at what the opportunities are for more structured, longer-term investment. And if we can get some critical mass and we can get some people on board, then I think we're very happy to explore ideas for other financial arrangements as well. But the plan at the beginning will be just to look at some grants.
Yeah. But obviously the important thing is that there's something in it for you as participants with fellows and with the school. So what do you think you've got out of it so far?
There's loads. I mean, the main thing you get as a social partner is you get a chance to know and work alongside some truly inspirational people who are entrepreneurial and passionate about making a change in society. And it is a privilege to be able to sit alongside those people and contribute something to what they're doing. So it's a very kind of give and take relationship. You give something, you get a little more back as well. It's exciting. And to be in at the beginning of something which is a movement creation, and to be in at the start of that, just kind of you just double down on it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've found is that on the whole, fellows are not slow in coming forward to say what they want and what they need. They're good at sharpening up their thinking about what precisely would help them. So how much flexibility do you think there is in terms of what people like you or other social partners would be able or willing to do?
Well, I think we will come with a range of backgrounds and experiences and a range of time capacity.
Yeah.
But I think there is plenty of flexibility with that to meet different needs. I mean, one of the things that struck me from coaching, mentoring on the programs, and you touched on it earlier, I think it is a really good point, is that a student at the school has this fantastic support around them, there's a program of activities, people to lean on, to go to peer groups, and then suddenly they graduate, and many of them are still in a pretty embryonic business at that stage. They're probably the sole owner, proprietor, manager, employee, and that's a pretty lonely and daunting place to be, even though it's exciting. And so the idea that just having a group of people that can provide some kind of ongoing support as part of a community and movement, we've got lots of flexibility to match people to particular roles and needs as this movement.
Yeah, so what do you think the fellows are going to get out of this? Why should they be excited about it?
I should be excited. Loads of reasons to be excited. Let me just give you two. The first reason why fellows should be excited is that is the best way to recruit social partners. We can tell people this is a really good thing to do, it's worthy, and you should get involved. But if you, the fellows, get excited to a group of social partners, that is the thing that will get people over the line to get involved. So create the demand and the supply will come. So that's the first thing. The second thing, again, I think we've touched on it, is this is an opportunity to be involved in something, but this is about offering you support. It's a lot, and it's support on your terms. So it's about understanding, getting to know you, working out what is it that's going to make a difference to a business. This is not about sitting in committee rooms, it's not about having grand policy statements, it's about getting involved with you where you need some help, where you need some advice, and where you need some money.
Yeah, great. And what do you think we should aim to be getting to with the social partners events generally? Where do you think we could get to?
I always think it's good to have a grand plan, but what you want to do is to get some things running, and then you learn from what you're doing, and then you build on that basis. So I think the work we've done, Charlotte, I think we can be credible for an initial programme with around about somewhere between 5 and 10 social partners. I think that kind of gives us sufficient critical mass to get a programme running. We've got a number of expressions of interest from people, but we need to turn those expressions of interest into firm commitments. Once we've done that, then we've still got some money from the initial pilot stuff that we've been doing to support a programme of network events like this, and I believe, and we've talked about it, I think we've got enough money to kick off a grant programme as well, and learn from that experience of let's put some money on the table, invite some fellows to bid for it, bring people together, put that money out there so it starts doing some good, but then also use that forum and these forums to start brokering some of these one-to-one relationships and start to get to understand a bit more about what individuals want and how we can match that.
I think you can see it's all a bit experimental because there's an awful lot of new fellows and there's an awful few number of social partners so far. So we've got, but I believe we can make this grow because my experience has been that anybody who comes in from the other world, like PwC for instance, and comes and joins us, suddenly goes, wow, this is a bit different. Wow, it's so much more fun than the ordinary world. You're not constrained to say that.
You said it.
Yes, it is. So, I don't think it's going to be too difficult. We do get people coming along and getting very excited about working with us. Some of them will have money, some won't, but they'll all be helpful. And I see the scope for us to be a social movement, along with the people who have already been involved with us, who are the people who come and speak on the programmes, the witnesses that you talk to, the network of schools, all of the people who have supported the school over the years, and social partners and staff and ex-staff and so on. That's the movement. It's not bounded just by the fellows. It's a bigger thing than that, because they all understand where we're coming from. And I think they all understand what we're trying to do in the world. And I think you're doing a bloody good job, and I'm so proud of you. I think that's all I need to say.
Thank you. I had a great view of everyone, Barry, when you mentioned grants and all these little But don't you forget, there's more to it than that. And the other thing that I think is interesting is who better to sell the idea of this programme than you guys. So in a minute we're going to hear from one of you a witness session. But I am also aware that it's really hot in here and we're actually all right for time. So I'm wondering, you're looking at me like she's going to make us do an energizer. And I would normally, but there's a bar here, so I think you could just go and get yourself a drink instead. We'll just take a couple of minutes and then we'll come back to give you some space. Is that all right?
Streaming bar, yeah. You're online. You're going viral.
Do you need some entertainment or was
yeah, after doing that, we then suddenly realised we got loads of people live and streaming it, so we had to cut your break. Sorry about that. So now we're going to hear from Robin Chu. So Robin is one of our fellows that runs Coach Right, that use coaching across schools and universities to tackle educational disadvantage, and in the workplace too, to help professionals do the best they can. I'm going to hand over to you, Robin. Thank you. You have to stand or sit about here.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Hello. I was going to make a book joke, but I don't have the confidence to. But before I get into talking a bit more about Coach Right and a bit more about our kind of financing model and what I've learned, I thought I'd start by just asking a question. You don't have to ask the question, it's just for you to ponder in your head. Do you remember the first time you told someone about what you wanted to do in the future? Remember the first time you told someone about what you wanted to do? Do you remember where you were, the location? Was it here in RSA House up in Strand? Do you remember how old you were? What age you were? And most importantly, do you remember who you were with? Who was the individual or who were the group? Just have a think about that. For me, I was 15. It was at home in Reading, which is where my family's from, and it was with my dad. And For those of you that did GCSE history, you'll remember this well. I was studying the Cuban Missile Crisis at the time, and I was learning about JFK, and I remember going home and being like, oh, JFK, this guy's pretty cool. He's like prevented World War III on a Tuesday afternoon or whatever it was. I remember going to Dan and going, Dad, I know what I want to do. I want to be a politician. JFK, Cuban Missile Crisis, and preventing World War III. And my dad, he instantly snaps and he goes, oh, no, you're not going to be a politician. The way you look and what we do, so my parents are owners of a local Chinese takeaway. That's never going to happen. Think again. Be a doctor or an accountant. AsianDad.com is the second. We'll release that later. And at its heart, that's what we do at Coach Right. We want to ensure that every young person that we work with, whether it's the 10-year-old in primary or the 15-year-old in secondary, or our kind of recent work with young professionals from less socially mobile backgrounds, never feel like where they grew up or what their parents did or, crucially, what school they went to determine their future. Unfortunately, still now, as you guys know, in 2019, that's still a big factor in determining someone's lifetime earnings, lifetime expectancy, health risks, is how much their parents earn, or the kind of postcode that they were born into. Still now we're in a state of kind of a postcode lottery. If you're born into wealth, you're likely to stay there. If you're born poor, you're likely to stay there. So we're trying to do our small part in tackling this big, complex issue and trying to make social mobility a reality. The way we do that is two ways. So one, we run school-based programs, like kind of flagship programs in secondary schools. We train university students as coaches, and then they work with the young person one-to-one to improve their grades, confidence, independence. And then recently, what we've done is we've launched a young professional program to support young professionals from less socially mobile backgrounds to rise in the firm that they're in, so that they can ultimately go on to senior leadership positions if that's what they want. What was really interesting hearing about the movement piece is, just for context, we're 5 years old last weekend. This year we're supporting just over 1,000 pupils across kind of 40 schools in London, the Southwest and Birmingham, and also the Isle of Wight, we got that last week. And excitingly, the way our model works, especially in secondary, is we train university students as coaches, and so far we have over 600 volunteers, so all the conversations around movement building and how do you build a movement around social mobility is really kind of resonating right now. It's an area that we've just not tapped into and not done as well as we could. So I was told to talk a bit about our model and where we're at. So for context, our turnover is at the moment kind of 180k, so still kind of relatively small. Lots of imposter syndrome from me right now, talking to much people. And it's 98% traded income, mainly from either school funding directly or kind of university funding or corporate funding. And there are just a few things that we've learned along the way which might be helpful. So the first one, and I couldn't, when I was figuring out what to write for this, the first one, I don't know whether it was because we were set up in an era of kids company and beat bullying kind of going under or whatever it was, but there was a really clear ethos to try and run as a sustainable social enterprise. I remember that kind of being honed into me when I was on the startup course in 2014 or what it was. But as a result, very early doors, we aligned our kind of social purpose, kind of making social mobility a reality, with our kind of commercial purpose. So what I mean by that is, for us, one of the main drivers has always been, especially recently, has always been to be a national engine for social mobility. So we never wanted to be one of these organisations that solely focused on London, especially in our school work, as we recognise that a lot of similar organisations do great work in London, and actually when it comes to outreach for young people, it's places like the Isle of Wight or Newark or Plymouth, areas of deprivation where it's actually not that fun to go to, and actually it's very, very challenging. Actually, the context is very different than London. What was interesting was having that approach of thinking like that, was that also influenced our commercial nous. While you go to a London school, for example, and you'll find they have 20 to 22 different external partners who are all kicking down the door to try and get involved, and therefore head teachers become very able at haggling and negotiating the best price. What happens is, obviously, if you go to a school in the Isle of Wight, they have never worked with an external partner before. Everything is done internally because no one would dare do that. Which means that actually, in a commercial sense, it works quite well because you're one of only a few partners. But also, it makes a lot of sense in terms of our social impact. So that was one lesson. The second for us was we did rely on grants when we started, from SSE, obviously, from Unlimited, O2 Think Big, and Shackleton Foundation, I think, were the grants that we've ever had. But something we were really clear on with all our customers, whether that was schools or corporates, was when we applied for grants and ran programs based on grants, we still ran it like it was a paid-for program. So we still did really boring practical stuff like invoice them, but it was £1 or something, and we still had partnership agreements that said it was discounted from a certain amount, just so we had the right status and the right kind of element of actually this is a paid program. It just so happens that this one time that you're not paying. Interestingly, when we haven't done that and we've run stuff as a one-off intervention, one-off opportunities, those partnerships have not lasted, and that kind of brings me on to our third point, which is everything we do is kind of grounded in long-term relationships, which interestingly in a school context means if you can design it so, okay, we're not just working for a year or 2 years, actually we want to work with you for 5 years, and this is the commitment from the start. It means that when that head teacher is looking to move on, broadly speaking, they take us with them, which is really exciting. And when we haven't done that, when we haven't developed that relationship, that's when things haven't been sustainable, and we just kind of run one-off work, which, as I'm sure you guys know, see a lot of nods that, you know, it's really frustrating. You do a really good program, and everything seems to be right, and for some reason you didn't actually speak to the decision maker, or you didn't quite have the buy-in of the system, and you can't run that program again, which is really frustrating. So always kind of look to build long-term relationships. In our context, is obviously the head teacher for a school, or a HR leader for a corporate, which kind of makes sense for us. And then thirdly, something excitingly that we've started to do is have the confidence to expand our customer base. So obviously one is through secondary school head teachers, but now we've started working with kind of university winding participation departments, and also kind of corporates who care heavily about social mobility, or kind of HR departments. Something that we've learned through a lot of trial and error is just being very clear on your outcomes and your purpose. Something when we were starting out, we were quite happy to flex and tweak our program depending on who was willing to pay, and actually that just kind of doesn't help in the long term. It just really kind of screws you over in the long term in terms of you don't quite have the consistent impact-ready program that you want to deliver, and then you're tweaking it for people. So just being super clear on outcomes. So super clear on outcomes, building long-term relationships, and aligning your kind of social and commercial purpose.
Thank you so much, Robin. You've clearly been on a really good learning program to speak on.
Yeah.
Thank you, that was really brilliant. And just to say, we asked Robin to speak. We could have asked any of the fellows here to speak, and you all would have been amazing. And so normally in a witness session, session, we would provide the opportunity of asking questions from him. We're not going to do that this time, but you're sticking around, so please do ask questions of him and, of course, of each other. So at this point, we're saying goodbye to our friends there. Can we say goodbye? Bye. Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming.